I'll talk about the DeepSeek model a little bit. So the DeepSeek model that we'll be pinging is called the DeepSeek R1 Distill Llama 70B. So it's kind of a mouthful. DeepSeek models are really good at reasoning, and this is actually like a distilled model from the Llama models, and DeepSeek has applied some of its training to the Llama model. So it's really under the hood, it's more of a Llama model, but with some of the DeepSeek ways of doing things, I guess.
And just saying something is that the Llama models are compatible to Gaudi, to the Gaudi framework. So it just makes it really easy to use DeepSeek powered by Gaudi. So that's really cool. And the 70 means 70 billion parameters, right?
Yeah, 70 billion parameters. So it's like, I guess, a mid-sized model. The smaller models are maybe like 15 billion and less, and then the bigger ones are 500 billion or so. But what I would say is that these sizes will change, like probably in 6 months. Like, you know, what we're calling small will be extremely small, and then what we're calling big might be called small. So,
do we have bigger models available too on the API?
Yeah, so I think that the largest ones right now available are the 70 billion ones, if I'm not mistaken, but that they are going to be adding like the 400, 500 billion, like you can see here, the 405 and 671 billion parameter models that are coming soon. So we'll return to this chat application. I'll go to, you know, our DeepSeek model and select that one and say start new chat. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw in a prompt that I've kind of built beforehand, and kind of just walk you through the prompt that got us started with building this application. So this is what people are calling now vibe coding, and so you start to interact with these LLMs to help build your code base, and it's pretty cool. So the prompt I'll kind of walk through here. So you're an expert Python software engineer and financial technology developer, and I'm asking it to develop a fully functional Python trading application. And I'm giving it a couple of packages, Y Finance, Alpaca, to automatically buy and sell stocks, and look at sentiment analysis of news headlines. So I'm kind of giving it a summary of what I want it to do. And then I'm giving it a whole bunch of requirements. You know, the first one, fetch historical stock data for the top 10 stocks by volume traded. So what that means is there's some stocks that are traded a lot more than others. So I want to just focus on, you know, the top ones.
No, I was just gonna say that's really cool. So basically, the summary of the top of the prompt, you're just specifically saying that you want to use some libraries, and then now you're just going through the steps that you're giving to the model, right?
Yeah, giving the requirements I want it to follow in more detail.
I see.
And also in the first paragraph, I kind of summarized exactly what kind of thing I want to build. So yeah, and gave it a couple packages, like you said. Number 2 is fetching the top news headlines, and then rating them as negative, neutral, or positive. And so the idea is if the stock is negative, then, or the sentiment is negative for a certain stock, then we would try to sell it if we have a position in it. And then if it's positive, we would buy it. So it's kind of like a rapid day trading kind of mindset as we're looking at sentiments of stock. And then, number 3, keep track of when the stock trading day is open or closed to make sure that trades are only being executed while the trading day is open. So we're only trading during open hours. And then the next one, number 4, just continuously check for updated news. Number 5, display key indicators for moving averages and price charts. And then what I'm also saying is I want to be able to buy and sell stocks manually. You know, you saw that on the left-hand panel of the screen that I showed, that I could look up a stock and then buy or sell it. And then number 7, maintain a portfolio state. So just look at like our cash balance that we have to spend and show that, so we're aware of how much money we have to spend. And then number 8 is logging transactions and updating the portfolio after each command. So just keeping a log of what's going on. Number 9, just from a coding perspective, be modular, clean, and readable. So, and I'm just saying to put all the code in one block. Sometimes you'll split things out into files and many parts. But in this case, I'm just wanting to keep it kind of simple at first, at least. And then number 10, I want to create a a front end, a simple web UI, and then I say I prefer Streamlit, so that's the front end application, framework that I'm wanting it to use. And then number 11 is include some comments, a short README describing how to run the app, and a requirements file for what packages are needed. And number 12 is to use only free frameworks and APIs. Don't use any paid ones. So all the APIs that that it ended up using, they're like free to a certain point, and then you need to start paying if you're making more API calls, especially for the news. So yeah, let's go ahead and run this and see how DeepSeek responds.
Okay, so right out of the bat, I can see that it's generating outputs really, really fast. That's the reason why it's being hosted on Gaudi 2. Gaudi 2 is basically powering the inference for the model on the backend. And it's generating code quite fast.
It's really, really fast, and faster than I can read for sure. And the interesting thing too, if we scroll up while it's still working on it, the DeepSeek models have a tendency to be very verbose, so we can see like before it actually started generating the code, it's kind of verifying this is what the problem is, and then walking through how it's going to think through the problem. And then it starts to build out the code in one big block, like I was saying. If we just let's see if it's finished now. So it finished the code, generated a README, a very simple README on how to get up and running, and then it also generated a requirements file, which we typically use to install packages with pip or UV or whatever package manager. And then it just gives kind of a cautionary note at the bottom that it's just meant to demonstrate a concept, and real trading carries significant risk, which I would echo. Yeah, that's true.
Right. So basically what you did, you prompted the model, you got some code, and then what did you do after? Because I'm sure that you had to change so many things to actually make the application functional, right?
Yeah, no, so that's what you and I have talked about before, is that when you generate code with these models, they do have a tendency to be able to get a good draft going of what you want, but you tend to have to be able to work with it and work on it. And you can either do that now through more vibe coding as you interact with the model, or you can just go in and manually edit it. And I did some combination of that really to build out the stock application, because I found that there were certain tasks that it is pretty good at, like when you get really specific with the model and you tell it I want this, and you describe it pretty well, you can usually get something pretty decent. But some of the time I found that the model would generate way too much code and make it really overcomplicated. And it just, for me, it makes a lot more technical debt occur when or this idea of technical debt in the future when you're maybe trying to maintain this beast of code that you've developed.
Yeah, definitely don't check in code into production right away. And the DeepSeek R1 model especially, it's quite verbose, right? Which is funny. You can see that the output, depending on the model that you're using, varies greatly. So we can see that it's quite verbose, and it produces a lot of code that maybe you're going to use some of it, but probably you're not going to use all of it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you might not use all of it, and sometimes you'll use some of the functions that it's created, but you'll just simplify it too. So so I do want to just kind of briefly take a look through the code that it's generated at least, and then we'll get back into some the application itself, and work through kind of some of the modifications I made, and some of the elements that I needed to change. And this code that it's just generated for us right now isn't exactly what I ended up with when I did this the first time with chatting with DeepSeek, but it's actually pretty close, because I'm looking at some of the libraries and some of the things that it's chosen to use, and they're pretty similar. For example, when we're looking at the imports, even just at the front of this, we have Streamlit. So it's going to try to use Streamlit probably as the front end, and then Y-Finance, which is like to interact with some of the stock data. Alpaca which I told it to use is actually to execute on buying and selling stock, and you have to have an account with Alpaca to do that. And then the news API, another source of information for stocks. And then this next one is the sentiment analysis tool. So it's a sentiment tool called Vader Sentiment. And I looked it up, I knew this beforehand because it used the same one. And it's kind of an older sentiment model, but it's analyzing often like tweets and very short social media snippets for its training. And it does a pretty good job of saying whether something's positive or negative. And then, so some other ones, some plotting tools and date time.
I'm actually curious how much you changed from the initial prompt to the end results that you showed in the beginning.
At least for number of lines of code, I can show that.
Yeah.
I'll pull open the original one that I had here. So in my Visual Studio Code. And so the original one was 183 lines of code. Pretty short, actually. And then if I look, so that's the original one. And if I pull open, I'll just pull open this one. And it actually is quite a bit longer. So 835 lines of code. So it's like 6 times as much or something like that. So I did, I guess, build out a lot of things, but a lot of it too was really building out a lot of the front end. So like you can see a lot of these Streamlit statements. ST is Streamlit, and a lot of front end elements do take up more space with code, I find. And as I was like iterating with this over and over, I kept wanting to change things and add things to the UI. I was like, oh, I can't see that. Like maybe the font color's like blue on black, and then it just some different elements that I had to keep changing as I went through. So
cool. So that's definitely a lot of code to go through. I think you're gonna make this available for people if they want to go through on their own and check it out.
Yeah. So the cool thing, I'm not gonna walk through all of the code. That'd take too long, and people can check it out themselves. And what you can actually do is you can just go right to the stock trading application, and you can go to files, and you can take a look at all the code right there. So it's it's hosted right on Hugging Face, and I'll just make sure to include that link. So this is the same code that I was showing in VS Code there.
I see.
So you can take a look through and kind of analyze that at your own pace.
And maybe you can show one thing that you implemented that you thought it was cool in the code itself.
Yeah. So I guess I can go back to the code here and go to files. So it's all kind of contained in this app.py. And let's go down and take a look at a few things. So if we go to, I think, Alpha Vantage, So one of the things that I didn't include in the original prompt that I ended up wanting to include was using Alpha Vantage, which is another API for getting news. And the reason that I ended up going to this one to grab some of my news was because what I was finding was the news API was rate limited, and then I tried Y Finance to get news and wasn't really able to retrieve what I wanted with that. It seemed like it had something available in the API, but then it didn't actually work. And then so I did Alpha Vantage, but then actually I also ran into some rate limiting with Alpha Vantage. And I settled on kind of falling back through these different news APIs until I got to Alpaca again. So Alpaca, you actually can grab news as well. And this one doesn't seem to be as rate limited as the other ones.
I see.
Which means I can ping it more often. So as I was working through getting news sentiment, this is something that I was adding.
Okay. So it was something that you were like iterating with it and playing with it and seeing which API was the best for this application.
Yeah, and I was seeing like what kind of news it was grabbing, and then, but what I did keep constant was the sentiment. So whatever whatever news source I was getting it from, or this news API is where it grabs it from a bunch of different news sources, I was still rating it the same way, like essentially looking at the title of the headline, or the title of the articles, and then rating the sentiment for those particular titles. And then I think what I did an average. So like here, if we look at this, calculate sentiment, and we find where I've actually defined this as a function. So it's using this polarity scores in the title of the articles. And so no matter which news source it's coming from, I'm just looking at that short title, and then I'm grabbing kind of 5 articles, and then saying, if the score is greater than 0.1, then rate it as positive. If it's less than negative 0.1, rate it as negative. And it ranges from -1 to 1, basically.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so basically the sentiment ranges from -1 to 1, and then everything that is a little bit positive or above 0.1, you're classifying as positive, and below negative 0.1, it's negative, and everything in between is neutral. Okay.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
Where are you showing this in the application? Because I saw in the beginning you showed in the application.
I can show that in a minute. What I'll do first though is I just want to show a little bit on the libraries that I mentioned. But we'll return to the application and kind of run through an example again.